Okay, for 4-6, we're going to use this budget, this personal budget start file, so make sure to download that from the assignment instructions. And there's quite a few things that we're going to learn in this assignment, so pay close attention. First of all, let me just explain what this is. Personal budget. So this is somebody's budget, their income. This section right up here is their income, meaning what they make in a month. So their wages is like their monthly salary, their paycheck, that's what they get. Miscellaneous is probably extra work, maybe side jobs, and then a total. And then they have their expenses, which is the rest of it, pretty much, down to here. These are expenses. These are things that they purchase during the month. So there's some fixed expenses, like the mortgage or rent. That's usually fixed. Utilities, telephone, those are all the same every month. And then there's some things that are variable expenses that are different depending on how much they spend in a month on those things. So, and then there's the two columns here, budget and actual. So this is what they budget for, meaning what they expect to earn and what they expect to pay. And then there's actual, so at the end of the month what they actually did earn and what they actually did pay. So that's just the information that we have, the data. So now we're going to use this data to create some formulas and calculate some things and figure out what they budgeted and versus what they spent, what the difference is, and the percent of their income of some things. So first thing we need to do is come up here and click in D4. We are going to figure out the difference between these two. So we're going to make a formula, and formulas always start with equals, so it's right next to backspace. So activate D4 and then click the equals key on the keyboard, and then we're just going to reference these cells. Okay, and so we click once on the budget for wages, and it gives us a B4, and then we're going to subtract the actual income at the end of the month. So hit the subtract key, the minus key at the top right of the keypad on the right side of the keyboard, or it's right next to the 0 on the number row on the top of the keys. So the minus, and then click the next one, minus C4, and then hit enter. And this gives a little dash because there is no difference. 35 and 35, that's what they expected, 3,500. Now we can do the same for the others, but we have this fill handle that will copy that formula down. So click the fill handle in the bottom right hand corner and drag down, and that just gives us the same formula for all the rows. And it's pretty smart because if I double click on this, I can see the references. Double click here, it moves down because it just assumes that we want to subtract these two on each row. So if I can hit escape to get out of that view on the keyboard, top left corner. Okay, so we've got that. Let's do the same down here. Let's write another formula. Equals the budgeted mortgage amount minus the actual amount at the end of the month. Press enter, and there's no difference there, but if we copy down, there's positive amounts and negative amounts. In parentheses, it means it's a negative amount. So up here on income, it's bad to have a negative amount because that means we paid more, let's see. No, it's good to have a negative amount because that means we earned more than we expected to. But in the expenses, it's bad to have a negative amount because that means we paid more than we expected to. So on the telephone bill, maybe there's a fee that month, and we paid more than was expected. Okay, the next thing. Well, pause the video and do the same thing for the other three sections: daily living, transportation, and entertainment. Okay, for the next section, the next thing we're going to do is the percentage of income. So we're going to figure out what percent we are paying of what we're earning. So mortgage is usually the biggest payment that we have. And so let's put another formula here, type equals, and do this one first, the budgeted mortgage, and then divided by, slash mark, divided by B7, the budgeted total income, and then hit enter. So the mortgage that we paid is 25% of what we made in the month. So that's a quarter of all that we made goes to the mortgage. And that's good because experts say that it shouldn't be over 28%. A mortgage payment shouldn't be over 28% of what we make in a month. So they're doing pretty good. All right, let's copy that down to the others, and you'll see that we have an issue. So what happened, well, it's got all this weird stuff. And so let's figure out what happened. If you double click right here, it shows that you're using those, referencing those two cells. But if you double click on the next one, this one drops down, which is good, but this one dropped down also, and we wanted it to stay up here on income total. We want all of these to be on income total, but they're dropping down, both of them. Whoops. Anytime something messes up in the cell, just hit escape key, the escape key on the top left corner of the keyboard, and it goes out. Okay, so we don't want, so Excel's smart, but it's not 100% accurate in guessing what we want it to do. So we need to make some changes. Let's delete all this stuff. So just select all that, hit the delete key, not backspace, but delete. It's just to the right of backspace and down. Delete all that, let's start over. So first we're going to we're going to rename this cell. And so right now it's called B7, it says right here, but we are going to come up to the Formulas tab. So click, make sure B7 is activated. Come up to Formulas, and then there's this button right here called Define Name. Click on that, and it says, okay, you've got this cell reference B7 of the expenses worksheet, and it guesses what we want to name it because income total is just sitting right there, and it assumes that's what we want to name it, and we do. It's got a little underscore in between because we can't have spaces in this cell reference name. So just click OK, and now right up here it says income total. So B5, B6, and income total. Okay, one of the reasons to do that is so that when we come back here and make that formula, equals B10 divided by, now see it says income total, and I hit enter, it gives us the same result. However, when I copy that down, it assumes that we want to keep that income total on every one of these formulas because Excel's pretty smart, but we have to help it out a little bit. So now we've got percentages, and if I double click on these, it stayed in that income total box because we named it and it understood that, oh, income total, okay, that's usually, we want to use that over and over. So pretty smart. Okay, so we'll take a few minutes and do the same down here. I'll show you one more time actually. So same thing, equals groceries, budgeted amount for the month, divided by income total, and it says income total. I press enter and then copy those down. So take a few minutes, pause this, and do the others in the other groups. Okay, when you're done with those, we're going to do one more thing here. Actually, two more things. Let me show you how to reference or rename a range of cells, not just one cell, but a range. So right here on daily living, the daily living section, let's select from B17 down to B20. So we've got those four selected. Exclude the total, so don't include the total on your selection. And then let's name that range. So let's go back to the Formulas tab, Define Name. It's got the range that I have selected, and this time it doesn't know exactly what we want to type in. So let's type in daily living with an underscore. So underscore is shift minus key, which is right next to the 0 on the top row of the numbers. Shift minus key, so underscore, and then living, and click OK. So now that range is daily living. If I click right here, it still gives me the individual cell references, but if I select all of it, then it says daily living. So we can use that in formulas and different things also. So there's lots of ways to use that, but we need to know how to name a range of cells, and that's how we do it. We can name one cell like we did for the income total, or a range of cells like we did here. Okay, last thing is we've got an issue right here. This reference means that it detects some issue with what we're trying to do here. So if I double click on this, I can see that we're just referencing an expenses range, a range of a few cells that that somebody called expenses. Now if I look through this and see if you can point out a problem here. This is all of our expenses, and it's referencing the total column or the total cell of each group. But the problem is right here where it's referencing the gas and not the total. Well, it's got the total down here, but it's missing this one right here the daily living total. And so it looks like they just missed the cell reference, and we can't change that here. So what we need to do is go into, hit the escape key to get out of that cell, but make sure it's active. And let's go into the name manager right here. This is where all of our references are. And so right here is the one that we're looking for. It's got the problem. So if I click on that one, this is all the range this is the range of information that I'm looking for, the cell ranges, which is a little bit confusing. There's lots of stuff there, but let's look at it individually. So expenses, this is the sheet that we're on right here, the expenses sheet. And then the dollar signs is an absolute reference, meaning it doesn't move. We'll talk about that later. But then it's B15. So the first cell is B15 on this sheet, which is right up here. That's the home total. The next one is B23 right there, and that's referencing this one right there, and that's the problem one. We want it to be B21. So let's just change it from 23, backspace, and type 1 to B21. And then it's got these reference things back here. Anytime you see the reference things, we'll get rid of those. So select those and backspace them. And then let's click this check mark like we're done fixing it, and then it says, oh, your value is going to be this number, which would be the correct number. So click close and it will change that number. So we can go in and diagnose if there's a problem with the reference or the formula has a problem. We need to be able to figure out what's wrong with it. Okay, so speaking of cell references, let me just tell you how we can reference a different page. If I just copy this real quick, just to demonstrate it, I'm going to copy, and now I'll just rename it to something else. Okay, so we've got the expenses sheet and another sheet. If I'm on the expenses sheet and I click on this cell right here, I can reference a different sheet, meaning just pull in something from this other sheet. And it has nothing to do with the budget really, we just need to know it for this section. So if I type equals and then go to another sheet, the other sheet, and I say I'm going to reference this cell right here. And so right up here it says, oh, I'm referencing another sheet and cell A23 in that sheet. And then if I hit enter, it takes me back to the expenses sheet, and right there it displays gas, that reference. So I'm referencing another sheet, and if you come up here, see it says another sheet A23. So we can reference anything that we want and just pull that number over or that text over or whatever is in that cell. That's called referencing a cell. And that's all we need to know for this assignment.